Mount Etna. The ferrovia Circumetnea snakes around the volcano. Below, the crater at the summit. The only narrow-gauge railway on the island of Sicily. The line runs from Catania to Riposto, with stunning views of the 3,400-meter-high active volcano. At 5 a.m. on an April morning. The city of Catania has yet to awake. The city is Sicily's second largest after Palermo and is home to about 300,000. Rossana Bulgari is one of the city's early risers. She's on her way to the Catania Borgo station. Rossana has driven trains for over 20 years, the last 8 on the Ferrovia Circumetnea line, which is operated by a regional public transport company. Predictably, Rossana's working day always begins with an espresso.
Grazie. Prego.
The eclectic range of trains from different eras makes the depot feel more like a museum than a transport hub. A set of modern volcano trains from Poland were added to the fleet in 2016, and Swiss-built hydrogen-powered trains will soon also join the fleet. These Fiat locomotives are between 30 and 50 years old. Rossana only finds out which train she'll be driving when her shift begins. The duty roster is still done by hand every morning. Today her office is a Fiat FCE Ade from the 1970s. But there's a problem. The engine won't idle properly.
Nuccia, the front engine won't idle. I don't know. I'm trying to keep it running.
But after a few attempts, at 7:25, Rossana and the train pull out of the station on time. As the name suggests, Ferrovia Circumetnea means railway circling Etna. The years in daily service have left their marks on the train. We leave Catania 5 minutes behind schedule. Sicily once had an extensive narrow-gauge railway network, But now the 110-kilometer ferrovia Circumetnea is the island's only narrow gauge. The tracks run all the way to Riposto on the eastern side of Mount Etna. But there's no longer a direct connection, meaning passengers have to change trains in Randazzo. The single-track line has wound its way around Etna since 1898. Rosanna covers the Catania to Randazzo section and back almost every day. Her co-worker then takes the passengers to Riposto. Only a few passengers take the train during the week. They can enjoy the view through open windows at a leisurely 50 kilometers per hour.
This line is beautiful because it's like moving through seasons. We leave Catania in summer temperatures, and when we arrive up in the mountains, it feels like winter. The volcano is obviously an integral part of this landscape.
The
ferrovia Circumetnea goes all the way around. Passing through all the related sites. Even the railroad has become part of the volcano.
Etna takes the masculine gender in Italian grammar, but for many Sicilians, it will always be Mama Etna. The gentle slopes of Etna look harmless enough, but it's still an active volcano. The volcano is constantly breathing beneath the snow-covered surface. And now and again it erupts, hurling a mix of ash, red-hot rock, and gases up to 10 kilometers into the sky. Simona Scolo and Boris Benka from the National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology in Catania have been living and working here for over 2 decades. Simona is a physicist and volcanologist. She studies explosive eruptions, volcanic ash, and the other hazards that explode from Etna.
We're now on the southern slope of Etna, about 2,800 meters up. This volcano is often described as non-explosive. But over the past 30 or 40 years, we've been observing increasingly explosive activity.
Pyroclastic flows are among the most dangerous volcanic phenomena. They're extremely hot discharges of gas, ash, and rock fragments that race down the slopes of volcanoes, as seen most recently on Etna in June 2025. These fiery avalanches reach temperatures of between 300 and 800 degrees Celsius, posing a serious threat to people living on the flanks of the volcano.
Right now, we're measuring the deposits left behind by the pyroclastic flow.
That will help us estimate how much material was released by this eruption.
The scientists' research also helps protect local residents. Simona moved to the area over 20 years ago.
As a volcanologist, I'm extremely fortunate. We live by a highly active volcano, and unlike other volcanologists, we can observe its activity directly and often.
It's the most beautiful volcano in the world, the most fascinating and most varied. There's always something new to see where you often wonder, what's that?
They head off back down the valley before the visibility deteriorates. Mister Bianco is around half an hour away from Catania on the southern slope of Etna. Workers still secure the level crossings by hand.
Wooden trains it is strictly forbidden to cross the tracks.
Mostly only high school students crowd into the trains at this time of day, 8 a.m. But Boris will be returning to the Institute in Catania by car, while Simona boards the narrow gauge in the opposite direction, heading for Adrano, where she'll be working from home today. Delays are common on the Mount Etna line, but today Simona gets lucky. Just 4 stops to Paterno. The Catania-Paterno section of the Ferrovia Circumetnea, however, was nearing its end when we were on board. A few months after our journey, in June 2024, the service was scrapped for good. The Catania Metro will be extended to take over the route, though it's unclear when the work will be complete. In Paterno, Rosanna's old Fiat gets the right of way. Our journey continues around the western side of Etna towards Randazzo. The narrow gauge, just 950 millimeters wide, allows for tighter curves along the route. The public are not yet aware of the planned closure between Catania and Paterno.
It hasn't been officially announced yet. We know because staff has been given a 60-day transition period.
In total, there are 34 stops from Catania to the end of the line in Riposto. At the beginning of the 20th century, many local residents relied on the railway as their sole means of transport. In Adrano, Rosanna calls in her train number.
40-50.
Amid all the delays, the control center has to keep track of every train in service. The route continues uphill through solidified lava fields. Next stop is Bronte, 760 meters above sea level. Sections of track on Etna's western side often have to be cleared of lava, or in some cases even relayed. The landscape around Bronte is now shaped by the former lava flows. Pistachio trees grow here at elevations of up to 900 meters. They were introduced to Sicily by Arab settlers in the 9th century and can live up to 300 years. Marco Meli inherited his pistachio groves from his father and uncle. He switched to organic farming 8 years ago. The family's land lies along the railway and is even dissected by its tracks. Marco is one of the few remaining farmers in Bronte who avoids pesticides, and that's led to a high degree of biodiversity on his land. The transition took some time, but today he's able to make a living from his organic pistachios.
I primi anni sono stati difficilissimi.
The first few years were extremely difficult. The yields went down, which is normal, and the trees were stressed. My family and my friends were against the idea and said, "Why are you ruining all the work of your grandfather and father?" But I believed in organic farming and in the hardiness of the trees, which we tend to underestimate. And every year, I saw new species starting to appear. I discovered new insects, and after 6 years, the yields started to recover. The production levels in the last 2 harvests reached the same levels as before the transition, and were even slightly above.
Pistachios are not easy to farm. They only bear fruit every other year and are highly sensitive to drought and other aspects of climate change. Bronte is now famous for its high-quality Feminella and Minullara pistachios, which are used in everything from mortadella and ice cream to cakes and chocolate candies. Rosanna arrives in Bronte an hour and a half later. The town of 18,000 lies on the western slope of Etna. It suffered from its proximity to the volcano, and in 1651, lava flows caused major damage. Despite its remote location, Bronte is a lively place, shaped by agriculture, traditional crafts, and local trade. But as in many rural areas of Italy, many people leave town at a young age. Those who do not share Marco's passion for farming often move elsewhere. Like much of Sicily, Bronte's population is aging. For every 100 residents under the age of 15, there are 175 over 65. Public areas are largely deserted during midday. Bronte's streets lead to higher elevations on the volcano. Here you can find a special birch that is endemic to Mount Etna. Betula etnensis grows here on the northern, northeastern, and eastern slopes of the volcano at around 1,800 meters above sea level. The tree is a relic of the last ice age and now only survives in the higher, cooler, damper parts of the volcano. But the Lady of the Woods, as the silvery white birches are also known, have seen better times. Scientists have noticed a decline in its population. Fungal disease is widespread, and the cold-tolerant species is also particularly vulnerable to climate change. In Maletto, the level crossings are literally secured by hand. Not the most riveting job for Rossana's young co-worker.
Treni in movimento, è severamente vietato attraversare i binari.
Beware of moving trains, it is strictly forbidden to cross the tracks.
School children and tourists are the station's most common visitors. At 922 meters, Maletto is the highest station on the line and a popular starting point for hikers. From here, the train gradually descends towards Randazzo. The Nebrodi Mountains lie to the northwest. The Nebrodi National Park covers almost 89,000 hectares straddling the provinces of Enna, Catania, and Messina, making it the largest protected conservation area in the entire region. In spring, it's pleasantly warm by the banks of the Simeto, the most important river in Sicily. The valley provides a habitat for a range of insect and bird species, including these bee-eaters. They dig their nesting tunnels into the eroded riverbanks. Valente is a farmer and cheesemaker. Now 55, he's spent his entire life here by Mount Etna.
When there's a major explosion, a huge cloud rises like a giant mushroom. It's beautiful. At night it's even more impressive because you can see the fire rising. You just stand there and can't look away. It's a beautiful spectacle.
According to a local saying, everything here is from Etna, both the good and the bad. Rosanna has watched Etna erupt. She lives in what she calls an extraordinary normality. It can happen again at any time. Etna is just part of life here. They treat the volcano with respect and admiration. Rosanna herself would appreciate more admiration and appreciation. As a woman, she's part of a small minority among the Circumetnea's workforce.
The proportion of women in this company is at a historical low. There's just a handful of us in what is a male-dominated working environment. We try to preserve some individuality, because the idea is that we all look the same in our uniforms. But we still try to maintain our femininity with a bit of makeup and by using a bit of lipstick, slightly longer fingernails, because we're all equal, but at the same time, different.
The journey to Randazzo, on the north side of Mount Etna, takes 2 hours and 15 minutes. Randazzo, too, has been threatened by volcanic eruptions in the past, but has so far been spared from damage by lava flows. This is the final stop for every train. And it's not just passengers who have to change trains. Rosanna herself will take a different train back to Catania in about an hour. Staff reprofiled the train's wheels and soldered display boards here in the workshop. The final section of the route to Riposto now serves only a few travelers. Continuous service to the final stop is no longer financially viable. Randazzo, on the northern flank of the volcano, is considered one of the best preserved medieval towns in the region. The historic town was built around 3 large cathedrals. area around Mount Etna is one of the wettest parts of Sicily. Clouds gather along the slopes of the volcano, bringing rainfall that combines with the mineral-rich soil to create ideal conditions for plants and crops to thrive. Alongside fruit and vegetables, farmers here also produce traditional cheeses. Among them, Provola dei Nebrodi, a stretched curd cheese, and sheep's milk ricotta. Nino Valente's father created this farm in the 1950s. Today, Nino runs the enterprise together with his 3 brothers and his sister. They produce cheese, fruit, and meat.
Bye.
A total of 13 family members work on the expanded farm. At 77, Pedro is the oldest. Nino and his son use the milk from their animals to make traditional hard cheese and sheep and goats ricotta. The two are an experienced, well-coordinated team.
We've always worked together. Even as a young boy, my son preferred to come along with me rather than go to school. I take him with me, not every day. When school was out during the holidays and he didn't have any homework to do, he was passionate about it, and he's still here with me today.
The family have their own store in Randazzo to sell their goods. A new day. It's 6:30 a.m. And the train to Riposto is ready to depart. Alfio Pecorino will be at the controls today of a train dating from the 1980s. Only 3 trains a day run from Randazzo to Riposto. It takes just under an hour to reach the Ionian Sea. Vineyards and fruit plantations line the route. Alfio has been driving this section for years. And previous generations of his family also worked for the railway.
It's been part of my life for 59 years. My father and grandmother also worked here. I ran around here when I was little.
The Alcantara River runs near the tracks. Around 300,000 years ago, lava from Mount Etna flowed down into the Alcantara Valley, where it cooled rapidly and formed these distinctive basalt rock formations. The river gradually cut its way through the rock, carving out the gorge we see today. A lot of stations along the route have been abandoned. Not enough passengers. Santa Venera is one such station. A year ago, Salvo Stellini made the old building his home. The 62-year-old retiree lives alone and spends much of his free time building model railways.
For 60 years I tried to figure out what it is I actually like about it, and I think I found the answer. It's the tracks. They almost feel like natural elements. They are made of steel and wood, after all, and they're embedded in the middle of nature. Maybe that's the appeal. They blend harmoniously into their surroundings and don't seem as intrusive as a road.
For over 120 years, the ferrovia Circumetnea has connected the towns around the volcano and has been an integral part of the generations that live here.
A 3,000-meter high mountain, and over there, the sea. You've got to love it.
But the railway has also been affected by new developments. Alfio has also heard about the closure of the line between Catania and Paterno.
Io sono legato in maniera sentimentale.
I feel an emotional attachment to this narrow gauge railway. Nothing compares to it. Speed and technology are irrelevant. When you look at the landscape or at the tracks, with all their flaws and dangers, that doesn't matter. And when that panorama suddenly opens up behind a curve, it's something very special. But they call the closure progress. There's no room for sentimentality.
Non c'è spazio per sentimentalisti.
The Ferrovia Circumetnea faces an uncertain future. After an hour and 10 minutes, the train pulls in at the port town of Riposto, to the east of Mount Etna.
Okay, finish.
It's time to clock off for Alfio and his trusty old Fiat train. But come the next morning, the Ferrovia Circumetnea will be back taking passengers around Mount Etna. For now,